The fact that I don't have any of these in my collection makes me question if I'm even a real handbag lover. But here we go. Here are 10 bags I love but will never personally buy, and I'll give you my reasons why. Now, watch me eat my words in the future, because these aren't like bags that other people like that I personally don't. At the end of the day, these are bags that I personally really do love, and they have a special place in my heart, but I've convinced myself that they don't have a special place in my collection, for now at least. And I'll group these into 3 categories to make it easier to follow along, so I hope you enjoy this video and thank you for watching. Here we go. All right, so in our first category, we have bags that I love that are just impractical. So either impractical in terms of the bag itself or how it fits into my lifestyle. And this is by far the biggest category. Again, for some of these, it's by no means the fault of the bag, right? But the fault of my less than glamorous lifestyle. So we're going to start with the one bag that inspired this video to begin with, and that is the Dior Book Tote. I freaking love this bag in every single size, in multiple designs. Like, this bag to me is art. But like art, it's best left sitting on a shelf to be admired and not to be manhandled. And if it's just to be admired, then preferably I don't need to be admiring it on a shelf from my closet, right? Because that's where it would most definitely stay, because it's just way too delicate to be used as a casual book tote, as its name implies, which defeats its purpose. Like the fabric material, the fabric handles, the lack of feet, the all over embroidery, the lack of any closure or security. Like, I could go on and on about what it lacks in terms of its functionality, yet it's so silly that the fabric print / embroidery design is almost enough for me to override all of its shortcomings. It's honestly just pretty art in the shape of a bag, and to me this bag is really more art than it is bag. And just because I can appreciate a work of art doesn't mean I have to bring said work of art home for me to stare at in my closet. I could easily just pull out my phone and stare at it online whenever I want, 24/7, rent-free, which is why I have yet to and will probably never be able to bring myself to buy it. Not even used, because I mean, being able to save a little bit on the pre-loved market sounds good, but it doesn't change the fact that it doesn't address the root cause of the problem, and that it is still a very impractical bag. Now, as a caveat, I am trying to talk myself out of like the mini book tote or the phone tote version, because even though those are extremely expensive for a bag, if you can even call those bags, I mean, the phone tote is hardly a bag. It literally just carries your phone, right? But in my mind, those feel a little more functional or usable compared to the original book tote. Even though it still doesn't have any closure, it just feels like it makes more sense as a mini bag than a book tote. And I can still get my fix of the very pretty prints that are available. Now, I think of all of Hermes's bags, this is one I have the most extreme love-hate relationship with. I love the idea and the size of the Constance, both like the 18 and the 24. I love how it looks like it's a really easy to use, carefree crossbody bag. The one thing that people probably like the most about the bag is the one thing I have the biggest issue with. I have yet to see a pre-loved Constance where the H buckle is just not shredded or tarnished to bits. And I mean, I just don't think that's a cute look for a buckle that size, and for what price between $8 to $10 direct from the boutique, or even a higher pre-loved. I just don't think I can justify that price, knowing how the buckle will eventually end up looking. Yes, I know all bag gets wear and tear, but I feel like this is a little extreme and over the top for a bag of that price point. Now, I know there are protective stickers that you can put on it, but that just seems like more hassle than I'm willing to put up with. So yes, this is one of the Hermes Trinity bags that I just don't think is for me. Now, if by some stroke of luck I get offered one in the store, would I turn it down? I really can't give you an honest answer, but let's just say I wouldn't go out of my way to ask for one or to hunt one down pre-loved. I honestly think if you like the style of the bag and you are wanting to stick to the brand, then I think the Roulis has a very similar structure, and you can avoid the hassle with the H buckle, and it's a teensy bit more under the radar. Now, if you have any experiences with the Constance, please let me know. Granted, the ones in palladium on the pre-loved market at least seem to be a lot more torn up than the ones in gold or rose gold, so maybe it has to do with the hardware. And if that's the case, please let me know. Now let's stick to Hermes for one more minute and let's talk about the ever elusive Kelly To Go wallet. I could make an entire video on how many times I've flip-flopped on this bag. For a while last year, this was the only bag from Hermes I was interested in, and even before that, this was the only Hermes bag I ever aspired to have. Like, I would have been okay if it was the only Hermes bag I ever owned. And this was my must-have bag back when it was like still in the $4,000 range. I was obsessed with it. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that there are many issues that I actually have. First off, the elephant in the room, the most recent price increase tagged on an additional $1,000 to the bag. $1,000. So this same bag, as of March 2023, now starts at about $5,500. And the value of the bag in my mind has not increased by $1,000. Nothing magically happened between when I first wanted the bag to now to make me think, yes, this is worth the additional $1,000 or 20%. So that's one issue. The other is, the more I've seen reviews of the bag now, especially not just like unboxing videos, so actually getting to watch like wear and tear videos, the one thing that I was a little concerned about from the get-go turned out to be quite a big concern for a lot of other people, and that's the fact that the turn lock sticks out too much for it to be like a bag inside a bag option. Same with the Kelly Compact wallet. I've seen the turn locks go all wonky, I've seen it scratch up the inside of bags, and so it's really not that multifunctional at the end of the day. And I'm honestly glad I didn't end up hunting one down, because I think it would have been a major letdown in the end. Next, let's talk about Louis Vuitton for a second. The Capucine. I loved it when it first came out, but the more the brand tried to push it as like their new iconic, new classic it bag, the more I found myself growing leery and pulling away, because for one thing, I just didn't appreciate being force-fed that messaging every time I went to look at it in the store. I don't know if it was just me, but back then I felt like every essay at Louis Vuitton was trained to tell everyone about this being their new classic icon bag. Like, I get it, but just let the bag speak for itself. If it has iconic potential, it will get there on its own. I mean, that's not why I liked it. I didn't like it because I thought it was going to be the new it bag. I can't remember the exact wording they would use, but I just wasn't interested in the bag because it's meant to be the new icon. Like, instead, it became a bit of a turnoff, but that's just me personally. Also, as much as I actually really do love the aesthetic of the bag, it's very expensive for a Louis Vuitton piece, especially in my mind back then. And the more I tried it on in store, the more I realized that it really just doesn't fit with my not so glamorous lifestyle, because even in the smaller sizes, it's still an extremely dressy looking bag, and I don't see how you could style it down, you know? Unlike the Hermes Kelly or even like the Fendi Peekaboo, which I feel like this gets compared to a lot because of the trapezoid shape. Those actually seem to be more versatile, and they come with the smaller straps to help make it feel less formal, but to me, it still feels like a really formal bag, and not like in a formal feminine way like the small Lady Dior that also has like the thicker strap. Like, the Capucine just feels formal, and that to me, as much as I love trying on the bag in store, I've just never loved it enough to pull the trigger, only because I don't know how to make it work for me on a day-to-day basis. I think the other issue is I also get so overwhelmed by all the different Capucine options, the sizes, the variations. It's like information overload to my brain, and it just makes it so much harder to pinpoint and say, yes, that's the bag, I feel a connection. And obviously the price for these just continue to increase as well. So as much as I think I will always love it, I continue to aspire less and less towards actually owning one. Next, let's talk Prada. There's a very specific Prada bag that's been on my radar for a while, and it's the re-edition bag in nylon in the color Wisteria. It's this beautiful, romantic, pale, dusty lavender lilac, and it looks so beautiful online. Like, I really want it. I love the color, but I don't love the practicality of that color in a nylon material. It naturally has a dusty hue to it, so I can only imagine that with time and some wear and tear, this is gonna look dingy real quick. And I really do like Prada's nylon, but for the sake of durability, I've always I've only ever felt comfortable sticking with darker colors like black. But maybe if some of you have experience with the lighter color nylons, please let me know how it wears in the long run, since I'm not the type to just buy and wear a bag for a season and pass it along. I'm in it for the long haul, so I need my bags to last for the long haul. Again, one thing I like to do when I'm considering bags is to look at the pre-loved market, not just to get a sense of the resale value, but also to see how the bag looks after varying degrees of wear and tear. And when it comes to lighter color nylon, I feel like there's always a lot more discoloration and yellowing around like the edges and the stitching. Maybe if Prada came out with this color in like the Saffiano leather, I'll change my mind, but for now, I'll just continue to look at this online. All right, so in our second category, we have bags that I love that I'm not willing to settle for. So these are bags that either won't scratch my itch or bags that I can find alternatives that will scratch my itch. Maybe it'll make more sense once I explain what these bags are. So first up, let's talk about the YSL Sac de Jour. This was one of the first bags I fell in love with from YSL, and it took me a while to really understand why. And I think it's because I fell in love with it when I thought the Birkin would never be attainable for me. Like, it wasn't even an aspirational goal. I just had the mentality that I would never feel comfortable spending that much on a handbag. Clearly, fast forward a couple of years later, I've changed my stance on that. And as a side mention, it was the same with the Mulberry Bayswater. It took a while to understand why I was so drawn to these bags, but once I realized why, I had to ask myself, okay, if I got the Sac de Jour, would I stop my quest of getting a Birkin? And the answer was no, because I experienced this firsthand when I bought my Bayswater. So at the end of the day, it just wouldn't scratch the itch for me for a Birkin. And once I realized that a Birkin really wasn't that attainable, it made it a lot easier to say, hey, I will always like this bag. I don't need it in my collection. Now, I also know it's not a 100% dupe for the Birkin, because there are aspects of the Sac de Jour that are honestly better. I love all of the different sizes that are available. The price point obviously is great. And the fact that you have a shoulder strap is also a huge plus, but same issue with the Dior book tote. Like, there's no security without a top flap or zipper, especially in some of the smaller sizes, because the Sac de Jours are pretty structured and stiff. So I wouldn't feel entirely comfortable with such a stiff open top, where there's nothing that you can even tuck or pinch together, even like the Birkin, you know, with the flap that you can kind of like finagle if you need to. So at the end of the day, as much as I love this bag, I'm happy leaving it at the store. Next up, I want to talk about the Celine box bag. So the Celine box is about as classic as bags get, right? I love the shape of it. I love the look of the shiny box leather, the metal buckle. I mean, this was the original quiet luxury bag, you know? However, to me personally, there's just nothing so special about it that I wouldn't be happy settling for a bag of a similar design for a fraction of the price, like one from APC, for instance, or more recently, I've been seeing this other brand, Atelier Auguste, I think. So yes, this is one bag that I think my itch can be scratched for a much more affordable price, especially since this silhouette of a bag is being produced out there by some very reputable brands for very good quality and are priced way lower, even lower than the pre-loved price of the original Celine bag. All right, in my last category, these are bags that these are bags I love that I think are just too iconic. Like, these bags are so iconic that they've lost their iconicness in my eyes. Hence, I have yet to prioritize actually buying any of these. So first up, let's talk about the Louis Vuitton Speedy. This seems almost sacrilegious because I feel like this was every young girl's dream when first getting into luxury, especially at least when I was young, right? It was just enough of an aspirational bag to want to strive for, and that was actually attainable. I've always wanted the Speedy because it's such a classic staple, but at the same time, because it's such a classic staple, I've never gotten around to actually prioritizing this and adding it to my collection. And now I've gone so long without it, I feel like I'll be fine to keep going without it. Now, I may make an exception for some of the limited edition ones. For instance, if Louis Vuitton was to ever release a Speedy based on their men's fall/winter 23 runway design, I don't know how to describe this gradient effect, but I think it's so incredibly gorgeous. I would be all over this. I would bump everything off my list to prioritize getting something in that design. I don't know what it is about it. The celestial feel is just so beautiful. I'm a huge fan of anything that has a celestial design, which is why I'm always so drawn to Dior. And I know Louis Vuitton has tried to do celestial / galactic designs in the past, but they've always looked a little off to me. But this, I think they nailed this. So I'm really hoping this becomes a real thing one day, but with each passing day, I highly doubt it now, which means it's one less thing I have to save for. Next, I want to talk about the Givenchy Antigona. So this is probably the only bag from Givenchy that I was ever interested in, but same with the Speedy. I think they are very similar in shape, so I would have wanted to choose one or the other because, again, it's such a staple, it's so beautiful, but it's such a classic that I still haven't prioritized purchasing it. And now, as classic as these silhouettes are, they are starting to feel a little dated. So this is a bag that when I do see it, I really do appreciate it, but I never find myself thinking about it anymore, aside from when I actually do see it in person. Now, I saved the best for last, but please don't be mad. I know the Chanel Classic Flap is the darling of YouTube, and I admit it's a good-looking, beautifully iconic bag, but this bag defines this category for me, how something can be so iconic that it loses its iconicness. Like, this is it for me. I feel like more so than the Birkin or Kelly, where the vibe of those bags have been fairly consistent, even the Louis Vuitton Speedy, if you will, I feel like the Chanel Classic Flap is going through a phase. But like what type of phase, I really can't put my finger on it. But it's just starting to rub me the wrong way a little, to the point where I really have no aspirations to add a classic flap to my collection anytime soon, because I don't see what it would bring to my collection. And I'm specifically talking about the classic flap with the CC turn lock. Now the reissue, on the other hand, I still find that a lot more appealing with the distressed leather. It has a bit more edge, a little bit more youth to it maybe, or even the Chanel 19. Again, I think that's such a neat spin on a classic bag. And these I would most definitely still consider in the future. Like, is that weird? I mean, like, I have a Chanel wallet on chain, which is as close to the Chanel Classic Flap as it gets, and I'm good. Like, I think that, and just the fact that I can't get a good handle on what Chanel as a brand means to me at the moment, that's enough for me not to prioritize them as a brand I would aspire towards, for now at least. Let me know what you think, especially if you own any of these bags. I'd love to know if my reservations are founded or if the beauty of these bags just override all of these issues for you personally. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and I'll see you next time.